What's going on, Dodger fans? Hope you're all doing well out there, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. We are presented by Fansided and TickPick. Your Los Angeles Dodgers are currently 55-37, which is good for 7.5 games ahead of the San Diego Padres for first place in the National League West. And while the Dodgers do have the second best record in the NL, it doesn't really feel like it because things are starting to spiral out of control. So we're going to dive into all the issues, including what just went down in the most recent game where the Dodgers are beginning a series in Philadelphia and they lost the first game in a blowout. Bobby Miller got absolutely shelled. He gave up 9 runs in 4 innings. What the hell happened to Bobby Miller?
I don't know. He was hurt this year, so I'm trying to wrap my head around giving him the benefit of the doubt. I went over his stats yesterday because I was in a kind of a heated discussion with my dad and my brother over Bobby Miller and what he did last year. And they were arguing that for a starting pitcher, his stats weren't that great. And I would argue that they were, because he had like an 11-4 record and a 3.45 or under 4 ERA for a rookie pitcher. I thought that was pretty decent. So you figure he's going to match that or even improve in his second year in the big leagues. And it has just went the absolute opposite direction. He doesn't have command of his pitches as well as he used to last year. It seemed like what happened in the playoffs last year kind of carried over into this year where he's just getting absolutely shelled. And he did have an injury this season, so there is that, and he is coming back from that injury that he had a few months ago. So I don't know. He says it's mechanical. Dave Roberts is kind of at a loss for words. Bobby Miller says his arm isn't hurting him anymore. So if that's the case, then I don't know what's going on. I mean, maybe it's between the ears, but he's been pretty bad. And I think that this Dodgers record that they have, you mentioned 55 wins so far. They have a pretty sizable lead in the NL West. The rest of the NL West teams are very mid and have been mediocre over the last 10 games. Pretty much the top 4 teams have been kind of mediocre the last 10 games. So the Dodgers don't really have to worry about any team overtaking them in the division. So it kind of masks some of the bigger issues that this team has when you think about October that people may be overlooking right now. And we've been pretty honest with what we think the issues are. And I'm looking forward to getting into them because they're glaring.
Last year, they claimed Clayton Kershaw wasn't hurt either, and then he underwent shoulder surgery. So like you were saying, they're claiming Bobby Miller isn't hurt, but it's really hard to buy that right now. This seems to be more than mechanicals. I mean, he's only made 7 starts, and outside of his very first start, which was really impressive when he struck out 11 Cardinals, 7 starts, 8.07 ERA, 29 innings pitched, a 1.83 whip. It's a very small sample size, but the way things are going right now, you can't have Bobby Miller on this postseason roster because he just continues to look like Andre Jackson out there, where he gets shelled, gives up grand slams to Trey Turner, who for whatever reason seems to kill the Dodgers ever since he put on a Philadelphia Phillies uniform. I remember last year we went to the game and he hit a home run off Julio Urias. Now he's carried that over into this year. And I was looking into Bobby Miller's pitch mix as well, and he throws one good pitch, which is the changeup, but everything else is getting absolutely obliterated. 455 batting average against his curveball, 400 batting average against his slider, 270 batting average against his four-seamer, and a 625 batting average against his sinker. So hopefully it's the yips or he's having a Rick Ankiel moment, but I don't know what happened to him. A lot of people are pointing out that whenever one batter gets on, he seems to just completely get unraveled.
And it happens a lot with 2 outs where he'll get through 2 batters and then for whatever reason, the wheels start to come off when a runner gets on base. The bottom of that order kind of wrecked him before the Turner grand slam in the early goings of that game. And you just felt, well, if you can't get the bottom of this order out, then we're in real trouble, because the top of that Phillies order is pretty stacked. Just like the Dodgers lineup, it kind of is similarly constructed. So if he couldn't get through that bottom of the order, it was going to be toast. And then the Dodgers didn't end up doing anything anyway offensively, which I really want to get into that. Hitting with runners in scoring position has been a massive issue for this team, despite their record. And there's a pretty good reason for that. So I want to get into that at some point. But yeah, the game was over in the early innings. It was over when the Phillies went up 4-0, and then it was really over after Trey Turner hit the grand slam.
Gavin Stone will take the ball for the Dodgers today. It'll be important for him to give length and kind of rest that bullpen. And then Tyler Glasnow, who I believe was supposed to pitch the finale, was placed on the injured list with back tightness. My opinion is I don't think we need to panic about this Tyler Glasnow injury. There had already been a lot of talks and concerns about his workload. I mean, this guy's pitching the most that he's ever had in his career. He's very close to a career high in innings pitched already, and we're not even at the All-Star break. I think he's like 11 innings away from a career high. 3 starts would tie the most ever starts as well as he's made into the season. So maybe part of it is his back hurts. The last 2 outings, especially, he hasn't looked like himself. I know he gave up 5 runs in his most recent appearance to the Brewers, and then the game before he wasn't pitching great either. And then one other hiccup, I think, in between this last month span. So I'm good with it. He doesn't need to pitch in the All-Star game anyways. The most important thing is for Tyler Glasnow to be fresh and healthy for October. That's the main reason that we got him, is to be that frontline starter. And it's perfectly fine with me. I wasn't expecting him to make 33 starts anyways. But the main story here is, though, the Dodgers are running out of a rotation because they bulked up. They added Yamamoto, who's on the IL. They were banking on Walker Buehler to coming back to being a serviceable middle of the rotation guy. He's on the IL. Kershaw continues to be hurt, although I believe he's making a rehab start pretty soon. Sheehan is out for the year. May will probably be out for most of the year. Gonsolin's out for the year. And Kyle Hurt, he went down again as well with an elbow injury, so he might be getting Tommy John. He could be out for the next year and a half. We were so happy with the depth, and here we are now. We're looking at a rotation of Gavin Stone, who's a rookie, James Paxton, who's always hurt, Bobby Miller, who we just talked about how bad he's been, Landon Knack, who's a rookie, and Robleski, who just made his major league debut, also a rookie, who was starting the year in Double-A.
That was my huge concern about this starting rotation going into this season, was just the injury history of it, and that's exactly what's happened. We didn't expect the Yamamoto stuff, but we kind of expected the Glasnow IL at some point, although I'm not as concerned as I would be if it was any type of arm trouble. Lower back tightness, we can weather that storm. And like you said, Kevin, he is in fact 11 innings away from his career high. He's already at 109 innings this season. So it makes sense for them to kind of give him a little bit of time to rest and not overwork, because the Dodgers are looking at this rotation and it's literally made out of paper mache. And so he's the only one that you'd really trust in a playoff start, maybe Gavin Stone, but Glasnow for sure is the one guy you're going to trust in a playoff start, and they need him regardless of what happens at the trade deadline. And I want to throw out, because you mentioned Yamamoto's injury, and I was there for that. I just want to point out what has happened with this starting rotation. So this is from Juan Toribio, who's the beat reporter for the Dodgers for MLB.com. And he says, since June 16th, the day after Yamamoto went down with the injury, the combined starting rotation ERA is 5.67, which is the worst in the National League during that span. And I know you didn't need me to read off that stat to tell you how bad this rotation has been if you've watched any of these games, because the rotation just gets this team so far behind so early. They're not going deep into games. The bullpen, as a result, is overworked, and they're having to rely on Double-A pitchers to eat innings. And you talked about Gavin Stone today. They didn't really want to rely on him to be a showstopper, but since he's been one of the only healthy and durable and effective starting pitchers, you kind of need him to be that ace stopper in the rotation to stop the bleeding a little bit, get this team back on track so that they're not staring a sweep in the face at the hands of the Philadelphia Phillies. And right now, these are the two of the top teams in the National League, and one of them looks elite and the other one looks kind of mid.
Yeah, that was the key stat that you threw out there about just how bad the pitching has been the last 15 games or whatever it was. Just pitcher after pitcher getting shelled after we were really in a good spot with the rotation. They've unraveled. Maybe it's a hiccup. I don't know if this is something that will trickle into the final stretch as we head into October. I mean, Yamamoto is going to be a big part of how far this Dodgers team goes. If they don't have Yamamoto in this rotation or replace him at least at the deadline, which we'll talk about, I'm kind of worried because you've got Tyler Glasnow. That's one. You can't trust Bobby Miller. You can't trust Walker Buehler. We don't even know if Clayton Kershaw is coming back. Gavin Stone's a rookie. So who are we going to really lean on in this rotation to make a deep run outside of Glasnow, assuming he's healthy? It's a big red flag. And the offense, which segue now into that, you can't count on them.
No, you can't. And one more point I'll make about the rotation before we transition into the offense is the silver lining is that it's happening now and not in September where shit would really be hitting the fan. At least now, prior to the trade deadline, they're seeing what a slice of Swiss cheese this rotation is so that they could properly fix it by the deadline. The problem might be, though, that there might be too much to fix. There might be too many spots in this rotation that you need to fill. And while I think that they can bring up guys from AAA to make starts, to eat innings and all of that stuff, they're not going to be enough pitchers on the market, or the Dodgers will be willing to make, that would be a postseason starter. So if you went out and got like a Crochet, I would put in that sort of upper echelon type of pitcher that you would want to have start a playoff game for you, that's a must. But then you got to go out and get also a guy like a Tyler Anderson. But that guy's not going to be cheap either, because Tyler Anderson is going to be the guy that's going to be the durable guy to eat innings to carry you through to October. And even though we know Tyler Anderson has started a playoff game for us before, or pitched in a playoff game, I can't remember if he started or not. I don't believe he did. He is typically not, you're not going to go into the playoffs being like, yep, good thing we have Tyler Anderson as one of our three main starting pitchers for the postseason. So is
that what you were asking?
What?
If Tyler Anderson started for us?
Yeah, did he?
He started the Alex Vesia bullpen meltdown game.
Right, he did. And I think I was getting him mixed up with Andrew Haney, who didn't start a game, but he pitched well.
Yes.
But anyway, whatever the case is they have to go out and get multiple starting pitchers, and that might be a problem.
Okay, so this ties into the offense. Dennis Gonzalez asking us on the X machine, how bad were we looking yesterday when Gavin Biggio was the only run that we got?
Okay, can I run through some stats here, because I compiled some stats of this offense.
Yep.
So obviously the top of the lineup is not a big concern, right? I mean, Ohtani, Freeman, Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, those four are pretty solid, and they've been producing pretty consistently throughout the entire season. There might be too many scrubs. And collectively, let me just read off some of these batting averages for you, which we've gone over, but it's just striking. Chris Taylor, 154. James Outman, 162. Kike Hernandez, 196. Kevin Biggio, 197. Gavin Lux, 208. Austin Barnes, 234. And I will add Austin Barnes, only 6 RBIs. Just you can't win when all of your role players and your entire bench isn't hitting. You're not going to be able to win playoff games. They can win regular season games because their whole team is built to hit home runs, which I'll get into that in a second. So you're going to score a lot of runs if you're hitting a lot of homers, which this team can. But when you're not hitting home runs and you need guys to put the ball in play and you need guys to get on base, I also made note of the on base percentages. They're atrocious. Chris Taylor, 265. James Outman, 263. Kike, 262. Kevin Biggio is actually leading this pack with a 314 on base percentage, but that's terrible. Gavin Lux, 262. Austin Barnes, 306. So it's these guys, at the very least, are not getting on base. And that's a problem because they need to be getting on base for the top of the order. Shohei Ohtani hitting solo shots is not going to cut it. He needs to come up with runners on base. They need to start scoring runs and manufacturing runs without hitting home runs. That's the biggest problem with this offense right now.
You didn't name him, but you know who else has also been kind of bad recently?
Baez, I have numbers on him.
Yeah.
Can I just say what real quick before you respond? Because I have this stat too. Andy Pages, who's been overall pretty decent, not great, not terrible, but over his last 15 games, he's hitting 200 with no home runs and 2 RBIs.
Launch Van Scoyoc into the sun because he is ruining these guys' swings or whoever his little minions are. Maybe Van Scoyoc is now like Russell Wilson status where he just hangs out in his separate office and has the minions do his work. Because like you were just talking about, there are too many scrubs in this lineup. And I have a hard time believing that this is all just pure, their talent ain't it. Like something is going on with the Dodgers where they're really encouraging this launch angle or a specific type of swing because Andy Paz burst onto the scene and now he's been irrelevant. And you want to know what this lineup looks like today because it just came out? Chalk it up maybe as another loss because Ohtani, Hernandez, Freeman, Paz hitting cleanup, Rojas 5th, Vargas 6th, Taylor, Kike Hernandez, and Austin Barnes with Gavin Stone as the pitcher.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that.
You mentioned James Outman. I am glad to see him get another shot. And although he hasn't really lit the world on fire yet, at least he has a few hits, although he has a number of strikeouts as well, like James Outman fashion. But I was so tired of Jason Hayward. This is like just watching a dead cow try to get on base in the lineup. Nothing was really working for him at all. He was just a merchant off that Coors Field series. But other than that, Jason Hayward has just been atrocious. Like a $9 million contract for this scrub. He's washed when you could have had Tommy Pham for like $1 million, who's much better than Hayward at this point in both their respective careers, or pay a little more and bring back Jock Peterson. I just never got the Jason Hayward love other than he caught lightning in a ball for a hot second last season and he's Freddie Freeman's shower buddy. But Jason Hayward needs to be replaced because he adds no value to this team at all. And Andy Pages is starting to worry me as well. I think that's more the rookie blues, but they need to replace him as well, potentially, and get more veterans in this outfield. And then I'm about to rip one big time, but before I do that, add some more thoughts or whatever you were going to spiel.
The problem is that it's not just one or two guys that are struggling. It's the whole lot of them. So the Jason Haywards of the world are going to be more glaring when collectively there's no one else that is standing out. Because it's not like, oh, thank God Jason Hayward went on the IL so that we can bring Outman up, who was tearing it up in AAA. He had like 9 home runs since he was sent down. So you figure maybe he can carry over that, but he looks, again, overmatched at the plate. He's swinging at bad pitches. He still has the same exact holes in his swing that he did prior to him being sent down, which is low and inside, can't hit that, can't hit up and in. And that's where they're pitching him every single time, and he's whiffing at it. Even him having a kind of a short, compact swing, he can't make contact with the baseball. But let's give him a little bit more time to see if maybe he can get it going offensively there, because he just got picked back up. But the problem, Kevin, is that, like I said before, the record is deceiving, because this team, while they have 50 plus wins, they've been hitting home runs like it's going out of style. That's how they're winning games. When they don't hit a home run is when they typically lose. And I did some calculations, because and again, these stats are not readily available, which I find shocking, because this seems like a pretty typical stat that you'd want to look up. But thank God for one of our friends, Blake Harris, who on June 7th tweeted out that the Dodgers were 6-16 when they didn't hit a home run this season. So I went ahead and looked at every game since June 7th up through the game last night. And overall this season, Kevin, they are 9-20 when the team does not hit a home run. And contrastly, they have a winning record when they do hit a home run or multiple home runs. So that to me is a big red flag when you look at all of the dead weight that we have on this roster, not pulling their weight and not hitting the ball. These issues are glaring. And it's exactly why we struggle so much in the postseason. I think without even looking back, I believe we only had one home run in the entire 3 games that we played in the NLDS last year, and we lost all of them. It's no surprise that this team needs to be able to switch their mentality at the plate or bring in players that can make contact, or they should be playing more small ball. If these guys aren't going to be, if we got guys on this team hitting 167 or 198 or some horrific number like that, they need to be bunting either for base hits or moving guys over. I don't care. They've got to start scratching runs across because they're not scoring. They're not hitting with runners in scoring position.
Well, you know who doesn't hit home runs? Before I tell you that, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It's time to rip a new one. I've come to terms that there is a new fan base that is the most toxic in all of Major League Baseball. These guys are so toxic. They should be running as a new political party in the election. And credit, because these guys are like politicians. They are just a bunch of crooks and criminals of this party that I'm about to talk about, because these people are insane. And credit to Zach in the Discord, who helped me come up with their slogan, which is "Make Gavin Lux great again," because Gavin Lux fans are the most toxic, cesspool, weird orgy people I have ever met. Nothing that this guy does for the Dodgers has been productive at all. Gavin Lux is honestly maybe the worst Dodgers player I've ever seen in my lifetime. He's got a negative 0.1 WAR, a negative 11.8 offensive WAR, and the Bruce Kuntzes of the world who say he needs to not have any innings at all at shortstop in a fucking 10-1 blowout because it's going to mess up his rhythm. Like, what kind of drugs are you on? Because Gavin Lux has been in no rhythm at all this season. Defensively, they make excuses like, oh, he's been a great defender. Like, bullshit. He's a +2 defensive run save defender, outs above average, like 1 or 2 as well. So it's not like Gavin Lux is saving our lives with his defense either. He's slightly above average. This guy is hitting a measly 208 with 263 plate appearances already this season. He's got a 262 on base percentage, a 282 slugging, a 58 WRC plus. I was told that after 150 at-bats, they would send Gavin Lux down to the minors if he didn't look good. Well, he's looked like dog shit. This guy is awful. Biggest bust in Los Angeles Dodgers history. And when they bat Gavin Lux 5th or 6th on almost a daily basis, as a Dodgers fan, this is maybe the biggest slap in my face that I've received in years, because I've gone through 4 decades of being a Dodgers fan, and Gavin Lux is one of the worst. Like, what the hell are we doing batting this scrub, this scum of the earth, 5th or 6th, because he is awful and a miserable experience to watch.
I mean, I can't dispute any of the bad stats that you just rolled out. And I feel while I'm not in the Lux, political party, campaigning for president here, I'm able to kind of see him for what he is. And maybe he's just not that good of a player. I mean, he's shown brief flashes that he could be good, but it's never panned out. It's never been consistent enough. The injuries have been bad. I mean, not just the knee injury. I mean, he had neck problems, I remember. Just has not been good. And for him to kind of be highlighted in the way that he is, because the Dodgers have been without Mookie Betts and Max Muncy for quite some time now, it is that much more glaring when Gavin Lux isn't hitting the ball at all. But the problem is, Kevin, is like, who else are you going to put there? I mean, unless you make a trade, right, for another infielder, nobody else is hitting their weight. So it's not like, Chris Taylor's lighting the world on fire. Kike Hernandez is another one that's been absolutely terrible. I mean, just awful. So there really is no clear-cut solution. And with the lead in the division as big as it is, that's why they're allowing Gavin Lux to try and figure out what the hell's going on here. But it may be time to cut bait and attach him in a trade just to ship him out of town, so that there's not this sort of black hole at second base. It is very frustrating. And I'm frustrated not just with him, because I don't think he deserves to be singled out over anyone else, because they've all been bad. All the players that we highlighted they've been competing with each other to be the worst player on this team. And at least Gavin Lux is hitting over 200. Most of the guys that I mentioned aren't, which is crazy. One more thing I'd like to bring up, because someone in the chat brought up hitting with runners in scoring position. That's been a huge issue. And that speaks to the situational hitting, making contact, sacrifice flies, moving the runner over, all of that stuff that this team cannot do. If you look at the last 3 games, the Dodgers are 1 for 27 with hitting with runners in scoring position. 1 for 27. And there have been stretches like that all year, because in Major League Baseball, if you look at all of the teams, the Dodgers are 21st in Major League Baseball with batting average with runners in scoring position. They're hitting a collective 245. And you say, okay, well, whatever, Jake, batting average, we don't care about that anymore. Okay, well, do you care about OPS? Because they're 18th in Major League Baseball in OPS with runners in scoring position at 736. This team has major flaws. And if they don't address it, either at the trade deadline or with the firing of a coach or the change of an approach at the plate, this team is not going to make a deep playoff run. Just isn't. Cannot win with this style of play, because what you're banking on is that then when they get to October, they're going to hit home runs. And if they don't, they lose. But it could be the case where they get to October and miraculously they are hitting bombs out of the park left and right, and then they'll win and everyone will say, well, see, Jake, you were worried about nothing. But my thing is that if you look at this team holistically, you need to focus on these other aspects of the game, because those aspects of the game are what's going to win you ball games when you're not hitting home runs. When you can't figure out how to hit the ball out of the park, you got to figure out ways to score.
I'm not done bashing Gavin Lux.
Okay, go for it.
I need to know if there's still any Dodgers podcasts or shows out there that still are defending this guy or believe in him. So let me know in the chat if there are still toxic, arrogant people in denial that believe in this guy still. With nobody on base, Gavin Lux is hitting 152, 125 at bats, and he's hitting 152. So he doesn't set the table for anyone. He's scored 1 run. To lead off an inning, he's hitting 107 with, again, only 1 run scored. This guy does absolutely nothing for this ball club. And I just don't get the Dodgers' belief in this guy. He is awful. He doesn't do anything with the bat. Why are we dying on this hill? We let Corey Seager walk because we believed that Gavin Lux would eventually take the throne at shortstop, and that was a disaster. The amount of handholding that this organization gives Gavin Lux for a guy that they threw him out into center field and he cried. He ran into a wall. He dropped a pivotal, I don't even remember who hit the ball, but against the Braves, he dropped a pivotal ball and 3 or 4 runs scored when Walker Buehler was on the mound. And then we try him out at shortstop. He couldn't do it. Now he's back to playing second base where he's barely above average. I'm willing to give anyone a shot. I will give a hot dog vendor. I will give a 7-Eleven worker. I will give a bum the opportunity to play second base, because the odds are they can do more than Gavin Lux at the position. I am just so insulted right now as a Dodgers fan, having to watch this guy on a daily basis. Like, it depresses me. Like, losing in a playoff game hurts more, but watching Gavin Lux right now is second fiddle.
It's really tough. It's really tough. But again, it is tough up and down this lineup. When you get past the number 4 hitter, it is really tough. When you got Miguel, you just mentioned the lineup today. When you got Miguel Rojas hitting 5th, and granted, Miguel's been great this year, and he's been one of the only role players or quote unquote bench players. He's been forced into being an everyday starter, but quote unquote bench players, he's the only one producing out of anybody. And that's a huge problem. This team has such a lack of depth offensively. And we already talked about the hits that the pitching staff has taken.
How do we feel about being owned by Dallas Keuchel?
Oh, man. That always happens, though, right? It's like it's always some either random lefty or some washed lefty or some lefty that can't figure out the rest of the league, but for whatever reason figures out the Dodgers. That was a depressing game to watch because, again, that was a prime example, the Dallas Keuchel game, where he was so wild and ineffective. He was walking guy. He had like 5 or 6 or 7 walks or something like that. And the Dodgers could not push a run across because they can't hit with runners in scoring position. They didn't get any hits off of him. Every time they made contact, they just, hit it into the dirt. Ground ball, ground ball, ground ball. I mean, he was just pitching to soft contact the entire time. But he had his back against the wall the entire time he was out there. He had traffic on the bases, but they couldn't push any runs across.
Dallas Keuchel was like out of the game for almost 2 years too. A few spot starts here and there, and all of a sudden we couldn't even hit him. Just awful. I'm expecting to get swept by the Phillies. Not going to lie. They're the best team in the National League. Christopher Sanchez is probably going to own this lineup because it's bad. Injuries definitely are a factor why this Dodgers lineup is bad. And then tomorrow, Aaron Nola takes the mound. He's probably going to dick us down too. So I'm expecting a sweep. And then we'll go into our next series, which I believe is the Detroit.
Paxton is pitching?
I thought it was Knack, but I could be wrong.
Right.
But regardless, then I think we do face the Tigers, which we can segue in a second into trade deadline talk. But I just wanted to say that I was hoping the Dodgers would show up for this series, but I don't think it's going to happen. But at least it
says TBD on MLB's website for the starter on Thursday. But yep.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be Glasnow, but he got scratched. Okay. So the Incline Dodgers podcast is presented by TickPick. So if you're looking to go to a Dodger game soon, or you got a concert that you've been eyeing, or you're excited for the NFL season that's coming up, or you want to see Summer League and watch Bronny James play for the Lakers, well, you can do all this downloading the TickPick app because there are no service fees at checkout. And now I think in California, they've embedded all fees into prices on all the other sites. So you know what you're paying, but still at TickPick, there are no service fees. So you're getting the best deal, guaranteed tickets, and you get to have the best seat selection for the best price by downloading the TickPick app and supporting your Dodgers. Okay.
Kevin, before we move on, we do have a little breaking news here on the Incline. The Dodgers have recalled right-handed pitcher Ricky Vanasco and optioned right-handed pitcher Bobby Miller.
They optioned Bobby Miller?
They did.
Holy shit. Well, then we need to talk about that for a couple minutes. Who broke that? Oh, yeah, I see.
It was the Dodgers themselves.
Okay. So, first off, on the Ricky Vanasco front, I am excited to see him get recalled back to the Dodgers bullpen. I know he's not having the best season so far in AAA, but part of that is because it's just a tough environment to pitch in. But I do like Vanasco's stuff, and I did want to see more from him. But I'm a little surprised unless the Dodgers are going to add a starter imminently, because you can't have a 4-man rotation. I know we're going into the All-Star break, so I guess they can kind of skate by. But even then, like, who would we be able to activate? So they must be working on a trade or something, if I had to speculate. I know the Colorado Rockies DFA'd Dakota Hudson, and Dakota Hudson isn't very good, but we kind of need an arm, and he's out there. But let's get into the big story here. I mean, what does that say that they just optioned Bobby Miller to AAA?
I mean, he's not good enough to start, is what it means. They sent James Outman down to AAA because he couldn't hit. Bobby Miller's getting sent down because he can't pitch. He's got to figure out something mechanically, and the Dodgers can't afford to have him figure that out mechanically at the big league level, because you can't send a guy out there giving up 9 runs in a start and not giving this team a chance. The starting pitcher has to give this team a chance every fifth day, and he's getting shelled every time. His ERA is through the damn roof. So I think that what they are looking at here is basically a guy that needs more work in figuring out what the heck's going on, because if he's not injured, then it's either something between the ears or it's something mechanically, which they did allude to after last night's game. But man, that is kind of shocking. I mean, Bobby Miller, let's just look at this real quick. Bobby Miller on the season, he's started only 7 games and he has an 8.07 ERA. He's 1-2. It's just atrocious. Every time out. It's just been, let's just look at this game logs. I mean, April 5th, he gave up 5 runs. June 19th, he gave up 5 runs. He's just every time out. He gave up 9 runs his last outing, just a ton of runs given up by this guy. He's very hittable, very predictable at the moment because he doesn't have command. So, yeah, got to send him down to work on his shit.
Wow. So, yeah, that's big. I mean, okay, so clearly they think he's still healthy, and this is a mental thing that they're going to try to work on with him in the minors. But in the meantime, the Dodgers now have 4 starters, 3 of them being rookies technically, and then James Paxton, who's very injury prone. So to me, this screams that the Dodgers are working on something to add some type of arm, because it's just impossible to count on this rotation right now unless they're going to go with bullpen games, which to me is very not optimal at this point. But yeah, I'm shook right now that they actually optioned Bobby Miller down to AAA. That's kind of mind blowing. And I don't like seeing people in the chat and online too. He gets this rep like he's a bust, or he's washed already, or he's a bum, or we should just trade him because he's not good. Like, if he's still bad in a year or so, then I'm not going to be like a toxic Gavin Lux fan or whatever and defend him. But to me, it's still a very small sample size. And when Jake got into the debate with his family, like, Bobby Miller looked like he was going to be a bona fide ace of the future based off his rookie season. This is just some weird spell that he's going through right now. But the fact that he throws 5 to 6 pitches, he has the potential to still be a really good pitcher one day. It just might not be in the year 2024. So this is where we'll talk about trade deadline stuff, where the Dodgers, they freaking better be aggressive and make some moves here.
Yeah, they have a lot of holes to fill. And I don't know if it's time to talk about the trade deadline as it is as important.
Where do you stand on Crochet?
I don't know. He's unproven in the playoffs, so he's having a good season, and he's a strong left-handed pitcher. He throws a lot of heat. He owned our lineup.
He did.
So I'm for it. I mean, you got it. At this point, it's like, if you don't get Crochet and like a Jack Flaherty, it's like, well, what are we doing here? They need at the very least 2 capable starting pitchers.
This is where I stand on Crochet. I'm a little nervous. Talent-wise, this guy is awesome, but he just falls into the same common Dodgers problem where he hasn't pitched the innings. He's also been injury prone. He's hitting a point in his career now where he hasn't thrown this many innings. Like, can we guarantee we're going to get the same Crochet that has been dominant in the first half for the White Sox, or is he going to get fatigued and is he going to run out of gas? So I'm a little nervous, not going to lie. Like, I'm clenching onto my pants thinking about the idea of giving a lot of prospects up for Crochet. I've already hit this I've already banged this drum a few times, but we're going to see him most likely in this Tigers series. I'd rather get Skubal if he's available. I think Tariq Skubal is a much better and obviously a more proven pitcher. So if I have to pick one, I still want Skubal.
I agree, because he's younger and he might be better than Crochet. So if you were to get Skubal and Flaherty in a package deal, that would be a haul to get those guys. And we've never known Friedman and company to be like knee jerk. They never do anything just on a whim. So they're going to be thoughtful and methodical, but they damn better be aggressive. Because if they don't, then what is the point of this, right? They spent so much money in the offseason only to have half their roster depleted by mid-season. So if they were as serious in the offseason as they were, then they better be as serious at the trade deadline. And it would be nice to be in a position where you could add a bat or an arm and call it a day, right? Just to sweeten the team a little bit. But this team has so many holes on it with the bench, the starting rotation. We talk about the starting rotation. They need relief help too. The bullpen's been great, but the bullpen is also incredibly old. So they're not that reliable. Are we going to ever see Brusdar Graterol pitch for the Dodgers ever again? Like, is that going to occur? Like, they need to go out and get someone like a Carlos Estevez. They also need an infielder. They need to go out and get like a Luis Renifo as well. I mean, there's so many different glaring holes on this team that they almost have to fill all of them in order to make any type of playoff run. They at least need to address the pitching. If they don't address the offense, they at least need to address the pitching.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, wanted to get your thoughts. Ken Rosenthal was floating out the idea that the Dodgers could potentially ship Walker Buehler to the Boston Red Sox in exchange for Kenley Jansen. How insane do you think that idea was?
That's crazy.
Would you do it?
I don't think so.
So this is where I stand on Walker Buehler. I don't see there's any world where they trade him. I also think they're going to re-sign him on a cheap prove-it deal for next season because they're gonna need the depth. And I think the way Walker Buehler has pitched poorly this season, he's not going to get a good market. So he might as well come back to the Dodgers where he's happy, as long as they're willing to give him a second chance, which I think they will.
Yeah, I agree.
But I am the leader of bringing Kenley Jansen back to the Dodgers, and I think the likelihood of this happening is a 7.5 out of 10. The only question is if the Red Sox are willing to trade him. I do think that they do need starting pitching help. So this is where we may have to give up someone in the farm, or a Landon Knack or a Robleski for Jansen, but I'll do it. I think Kenley Jansen would be a big add to this bullpen. If it's not him, I also like the idea of Carlos Estevez. I believe he's an all-star for the Angels as well this season. He's having a really good year. He would make a lot of sense as well. Or the bullpen guys that we talked about last week, the Rangers potentially dropping off some guys, or the Blue Jays might be selling
Kirby
some
Yates.
guys. Yeah, that was my guy I talked about last week. He's an all-star. So they're going to make a move for a reliever. I can't see them not doing it. Ryan wanted me to cover. He asked in the Discord earlier, what happens if the Dodgers don't make a move? What would be your reaction to that?
If the Dodgers don't make a move at the deadline?
Yeah, or if they kind of do what they did last year.
I mean, I'm going to be furious. I mean, like, that would be horrendous. It's like, what are we doing here? Right? It's like, it kind of reminds me of, LeBron James on the Lakers, where it's like, if you have LeBron James on your team, you better try to win a title every single year. And, granted, the Lakers have just completely bungled the entire operation over there. and that Russell Westbrook trade was a disaster, but they still have had the mentality of trying to win a championship every year. And the Dodgers this offseason got Shohei Ohtani to defer $1 bajillion in his contract so that they could go out and get pieces like Teoscar Hernandez and Glasnow and Yamamoto. So they damn well better try to win a championship every single year that Ohtani's in Dodger blue. That has to be the mentality. They sort of laid up last year because they wanted to gear up for Ohtani this year, and they didn't really make a lot of significant moves. And the moves that they made didn't really help. And in fact, in a lot of ways, they hurt our team. So this year, they better kick it into gear and get some moves. I have a hard time believing, though, that they will get to the trade deadline and not make a trade. I would be shocked.
Justin Yamas, would you reacquire Max Scherzer? I'd rather not make a move than acquire Max Scherzer.
Yeah, don't want him. Don't trust him. He's dead to me, like his arm.
Yeah. No, screw that bum. I can't believe he got a World Series with the Rangers for going to the Mets. Like that is some bullshit. That still pisses me off. Literally got carried to that ring. So yeah, I mean, what was I gonna say? I'm drawing a blank here. But yeah, the Dodgers have to make a move. Like they cannot do what they did last season and just roll with what they got last season. I think right now there is a need in the infield. So this is what just struck, the light bulb went off. We don't need Bo Bichette anymore because Bo Bichette has been awful, and I don't think the Blue Jays intend on trading him. Bo Bichette has like a 598 OPS. I don't know what happened to him, but he's drinking the same Gatorade that Gavin Lux is drinking because he's been useless too. With all these setbacks and questions about Max Muncy's health, he just had another setback. So this guy is like 3 or 4 setbacks deep into the season now, and he won't be swinging the bat.
The outlook on Muncy is oblique. It is just awful. I don't understand why he continues to not be able to get back. It's just, God damn it.
Yeah, we need to shift our focus on acquiring a third baseman, most likely. I don't know when Max Muncy's even going to come back. If he's going to come back, it won't be before the deadline, I don't think, which is pretty scary because you can't go into the postseason with Gavin Biggio as your third baseman. You can't go into October with Kike Hernandez as your third baseman. And I don't care if he's a little hot right now. I don't trust Chris Taylor to be my third baseman either.
No, thank you. That's why a guy like Luis Renifo would be a perfect fit. He's having a career season.
We might have to trade for Justin Turner.
He's not having that great of a year, is he?
He's not, but like we're at desperate times right now. And would you rather have Justin Turner starting at third base or Gavin Biggio?
Well, I mean, that's like, asking if you want a major league player to start at third base for you or me. It's not a conversation.
I just think that's where we are right now. It's hard for me to pinpoint third basemen that are available outside of Renifo. So he's obviously at the top of our board. But if the Angels decide not to trade him or Artie Moreno vetoes another trade to the Dodgers, then we have to explore the B tire. And Justin Turner is a name that is available per many insiders because he's a expiring contract and the Blue Jays don't anticipate holding on to him, that we might have to do it.
I don't know. Dennis Gonzalez brought up Nathan Eovaldi, which I brought up last week as a potential pitcher to get. I love Nathan Eovaldi and I love his postseason stats. So I would be all in on getting him from the Rangers, not Scherzer. But let's see. Let's look at Justin Turner. He's 39. He's hitting 241 this year, 5 home runs, 27 RBIs. 709 OPS. I mean, it's literally just a tick above what the rest of the guys we've mentioned on this roster that are how they're producing. That was the worst constructed sentence I've ever said. But the idea is that Justin Turner is only slightly better than the group that we already have.
Harmony Davis, what about a package of Flaherty and Urshela? We obviously want Flaherty, but pass on Gio Urshela, who's
Gio Urshela is not having a good year either.
No, you might as well just trust Cavan Biggio because Urshela's got a 629 OPS himself.
Yeah, he's hitting 257, 3 homers. Not going to cut it. And Jesus, I didn't realize he was already 32.
Any other trade deadline topics?
Well, we haven't heard anything on the Randy Arozarena front. That would be good. Has he improved at all?
He's about the same, but lower OPS at like 670, I think.
Yeah, 674, 202 average.
So I'm not going to read too much into his stats. It's not the best of this. It's not the best season, but we've already done deep dives of why we want a Arozarena. But
playoffs.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to find guys. I think a week from now or 2 weeks from now, we'll have a lot more clarity of who truly is available out there on the deadline market. But this Tigers series will be interesting for the pure fact that this could be some of our future Dodgers. So I'm going to pay attention to these Detroit Tigers. Javier Baez is awful, but they might be desperate. Jay saying Brent Rooker. Jake likes him. I know we talked about Rooker last week. He looks good. Isaac Paredes from low 17s. That's a great suggestion. That's a guy that plays all around the infield. And with Max Muncy's uncertainty, that is someone that could make a lot of sense from the Dodgers on Tampa Bay. He's having a good season as well.
Did they just sign him to a contract, or am I crazy?
Let me see.
He's 25 years old. I mean, he would be a third baseman of the future if we traded for him.
Yeah, he's just on regular arbitration right now.
I must have misheard that.
Maybe you're thinking of Wander Franco.
Yeah, no, I'm not, Kevin. No, I'm not thinking of that guy. Paredes has 15 home runs this year and 50 RBIs. I'd take that on this team in a heartbeat.
Package him and a Arozarena and maybe throw in a Peter Fairbanks and we're rolling. That'd be a awesome. Or Eflin, you could throw him in there. One of those guys. Like the Rays have a lot of guys I actually want, so I'm on board.
If our trade deadline consists of bringing back JT and Kenley Jansen, I'm gonna cry.
That'd be funny. All right, Jake. Any final topics or things you want to cover?
I just hope that the Dodgers address some of these issues that they have, whether it's on the roster or changing their approach at the plate. Something they've got to look at this and say this is not sustainable. They've seen the way that this offense just goes absolutely dead cold in the playoffs because they rely too heavily on home runs. And I just fear that no one's asking about that. Why is nobody asking about that when they question Dave Roberts, when they question anybody else in this organization? And it's mind numbing because the teams that win in the playoffs, like, Arizona that caught fire last year, they stole bases. They made contact. They made life hell for you to be able to put them away because they were so pesky. And they didn't hit a lot of home runs from what I could tell. The Dodgers were a much bigger home run hitting team than the Diamondbacks. And look, if you have a different approach to the plate and you are trying to focus on manufacturing runs, then the home runs they'll be there. Like the home runs will happen. But they can't just rely on that. And I just hope that something changes. Something needs to change because the record is deceiving, right? And the comfortable lead in the division is deceiving of what, of the flaws in this team. And I will keep saying it throughout the rest of the season. And if it improves, I'll change my tune and praise them for changing my tune. But that's all I have to say. Something needs to change.
We're good on time here. So my final thoughts / final subject. Let's talk about the National League All-Star team real quick. Let us know in the comments who you think was the biggest snub was or who was undeserving. But starters, William Contreras, Bryce Harper, Ketel Marte, Alec Boehm, Trey Turner, Christian Yelich, Jurickson Profar, Fernando Tatis, and Shohei Ohtani. Quick high level, Will Smith should have been in over William Contreras, especially when Will Smith had
awful.
the higher OPS and the higher WAR at this point, and he went insane in that one game. I know it came after the fact, but that 3 home run night, first time Will Smith ever did it, that was really impressive.
Yeah.
Trey Turner got in kind of with an asterisk because I think people deferred to him after Mookie Betts went down, so I get it. But honestly, I don't know how Fernando Tatis Jr. is starting this All-Star game. He's not having an All-Star starter-worthy season by any means, and Teoscar Hernandez, who made it as a reserve, is clearly having a better year than Tatis. So this is some stupid anti-Dodgers bias right here.
I mean, isn't the starting lineup voted by the fans?
Yes.
So maybe that needs to stop. Maybe the fans shouldn't get a say. I'd be fine with that.
Well, based off the reserves, I don't know if these people deserve a say either, because the reserves are Will Smith, who obviously should be starting. CJ Abrams represents the Nationals. Pete Alonso, very laughable how he made this team. I assume he's the only Met that made it, but the fact that Christian Walker didn't get in over Pete Alonso, if you compare their head-to-head stats.
No way. Christian Walker didn't get on the All-Star team?
No. And I guess these people must have the smart fans perspective as well, because they must not think Christian Walker kills the Dodgers or kills other teams, because Walker is having a great season.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Christian Walker is the greatest player that ever lived. The way he hits against the Dodgers, it's like I can't believe he didn't make the All-Star team.
Another laughable one is Luis Arias. That's a joke right there. The fact that he made it. You look at his stats, he's not an all-star. Mookie Betts made it, won't play. Ellie De La Cruz, phenomenal season. Freddie Freeman, well-deserved. Ryan McMahon, like the only good player on the Rockies, but he deserved it. Teoscar. How did Jackson Merrill make this team? Am I just out of the loop? I don't think Jackson Merrill is having that tremendous of a season. How did he get on? Unless the outfield depth is just this atrocious. And then Heliot Ramos, he's doing fine for San Francisco. Brian Reynolds and Marcell Ozuna.
To be fair, Jackson Merrill is hitting 286 with 12 home runs. So
that is not moving me at all.
I mean, for a rookie to be doing that.
I mean, sure, for Rookie of the Year voting, he should be top 5, but we've lowered the bar now where 12 home runs is all it takes to make the All-Star team. He has a 767 OPS and a 319 on base.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Oh, especially over Christian Walker. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I mean, Luis Arias is hitting 309, but he only has 23 RBIs and he has an OPS of 719.
The amount of Padres that made it is just, it's absurd.
I know. If the Padres have this many All-Stars, why are they so bad?
Starting pitching wise,
they kick our ass though. That's
Tyler Glasnow, who got replaced by Hunter Green, Shota Imanaga, Ronaldo Lopez, who's having the most random breakout ever, Chris Sale, who's the front runner right now for the Cy Young. I can't believe he's having the season he's having. Paul Skeens, who's basically a lock for Rookie of the Year, barring injury. He's been sensational. Ranger Suarez, Logan Webb, and Zach Wheeler. Another one that pisses me off is Logan Webb getting in over Gavin Stone. Now all of a sudden we decided not to go with the guy that has more wins and a better ERA because Kershaw got screwed in all those Cy Young Award votings because the Max Scherzers of the world or the R.A. Dickies had more wins and maybe even a lower ERA. But now we snub Gavin Stone. That's just stupid.
Yeah. It's the Dodgers do have a lot of all-stars, but they should have more.
And then finally the relievers, these are boring. Ryan Helsley, Jeff Hoffman, Tanner Scott, Matt Strom, and Robert Suarez. All right. And that's the National League All-Star team. I don't remember if they beat the AL last year, but I feel like they lose to the American League almost every year. It's just tradition. Anything you want to shout out real quick, Jake?
The National League won last year.
Got it. Well, I don't really watch the All-Star game anymore. I honestly, I'm kind of a hater of All-Star Weekend in general. I think the Home Run Derby's stupid. I'm glad Ohtani's not involved.
Home Run Derby is the best thing of that.
I hate the after effects. Guys, especially on our team, just never look right after they participate.
Yeah.
I hate the All-Star weekend, like boring. NBA All-Star weekend boring, NFL Pro Bowl boring. And those are my final thoughts. So thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. We are presented by TickPick and Fansided, and if you haven't commented yet in the chats about who you think is an all-star snub, do that below, and make sure you're subscribing on the audio feed, and you can leave us a review if you want. Jake, passing over to you.